My name is Saviksha.
My name is Poppy.
It's me, your prairie queen, FRANCHESKA DYNAMITES.
We are Lavender Club, and you're watching Queer in Alberta.
Hello and welcome to Queer in Alberta. I'm your host, Kels Valenzuela-Delamarter. I'm a queer Filipino-Canadian and I use she/her pronouns. On this podcast, I sit down and chat with 2S LGBTQIA+ Albertans who tell me all about their experiences of coming out, growing up in small towns, or finding community across the province of Alberta today. As always, we recognize that Queer in Alberta is filmed on Treaty 7 territory in the city of Lethbridge, Alberta, which is the home of the Blackfoot Confederacy, as well as the Oti-Pimsawak Métis government in the Alberta District Number 1. I am so excited for this week's episode, and I already know that longtime listeners of the show will be too. In Season 1, Episode 8, you may remember meeting Michelle, an amazing woman who contacted me only 2 weeks after coming out in her 50s to share her story with me. Long before the idea to make the Queer in Alberta podcast, Michelle was actually the first person that I ever sat down and interviewed to talk about queer experiences here in the Canadian prairies. So when I was filming Season 2, I knew that I just had to invite her back onto the show. We caught up on everything that's happened for the both of us in the past 2 years, and there was a lot of ground to cover. Michelle shared new insights into her identity, touching on the parallels that she's learning about in regards to neurodivergency and queer experiences. Without further ado and without further delay, here is Season 2, Episode 5 of Queer in Alberta. The word of the year is authentic, featuring none other than Michelle Christopherson, our first ever returning guest on Queer in Alberta.
And I thought, I'm close to retirement at 50. I'm not going to wait until I'm retired to begin living. Like, just take my life off pause, my life off hold, like embrace it, grab it by both horns and like, rah, like ride it like the stampede bronking bucko? No, bucking bronco.
What are they? That's what it is. I was about to try and help you, but I had nothing. I am not that type of gay.
No.
Michelle, would you please introduce yourself? I'm so pleased to have you here.
Thank you so much, Kelsey. I'm Michelle Christopherson. My pronouns are she, they. I was born in the area known as Mohkinstis in Blackfoot, and very close to the Tsuut'ina Nation. I work for a school board. I speak a bunch of different languages, and I'm quite late to the game of discovering who I actually am under all of these layers. And it's been quite the exciting journey.
I mean, you came out 2 weeks before our first conversation, hey?
Yes, I know. When I said it to you in the call, I was like, yeah, I just came out. And you're like, what? You just came out 2 weeks ago? Yeah.
I remember that so vividly because here you were like so openly speaking your truth and sharing these like very personal and open experiences. And I don't think I could have done that 2 weeks after coming out. It's something that's really, really stands out about you.
I guess it's all or nothing. Like once I decide, I guess I'm committed.
I feel like today's conversation is just going to be so much catch up between you and I, because I've seen peripherally all of the things you've done in social media or the occasional email update, but you've just had, I think, an incredible 2 years.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And
I did, in honesty though, prior to speaking to you in 2021, I did have about 3 or 4 years to kind of process through to get to that point myself. But I had only come out to friends and family and online really with that National Coming Out Day on October 11th, 2021.
And sometimes, you know, I think as someone like myself, I've been out for almost a decade, and that's something we even talked about in our original conversation, like these differences in our experiences. But these days, like National Coming Out Day, the further in your journey, sometimes you kind of take them for granted. And I think like the way that day empowered you to like take that step out of the closet, I think it's a strong reminder of why these days are important and necessary.
Yeah. Necessary to be visible for others, but not necessary to push to come out if you're not ready. Right?
Yes, totally agree. And so when you first like
we're chatting with me. Would you mind maybe sharing, like, has your identity and exploration of yourself shifted and changed from even our initial conversation 2 years ago?
Mm-hmm. Sure. Yeah. 2 years ago, I had discovered lesbian TikTok. I had joined a support group that was at 50 people, around 250 people. It's now, I think, over 8,000.
No
for
way.
late bloomers. Yeah. And I was still, I think back then I was sort of toying with the idea of, as many of us do, am I queer enough? You know, do I really belong? And I absolutely feel like I belong now. So that's part of that journey. To me back then, it sort of felt like a celebration of like stepping up and taking my space where I belonged. That was like icing on the cake that had begun with understanding myself, understanding that some of the options that were available to me, but were never spoken about during my time being in school. GSAs didn't exist until recently, but alternatives to compulsory heterosexuality weren't taught in school in Alberta until about the 1990s. And I graduated before that.
Yes.
So it was, you're going to get married, you're going to have kids, you're going to have a job. And it was like this ladder of your, learner's license at 14, your driver's license at 16.
So specific.
Drink at 18, 21. No, 21 was just in the States. It felt like I was doing the things that were expected of me for growing up. And realizing that there were other options that are fully so mind-blowing and interesting. And there's a whole, community there. I was grateful for lockdown because it made it accessible to me being, as you mentioned, with queer in Alberta, like, where are all the gay people in Alberta? And I wouldn't have known where to go to find them. So we found ourselves online and in groups. And then as soon as lockdown was over, it was like, let's meet at the clubs and let's have social activities and go for walks. And it was kind of neat. Since then, over the past 2 years, quite a lot has happened. The very first step in this journey was learning about boundaries for me. I hadn't even heard the word until I became part of the queer community.
How do you mean, like, boundaries? Like, I think you're saying consent, but like, you're talking within relationships or just all kinds of walks of life? Yeah,
just something as easy as the ability to say no and have that be a full sentence. No, thanks. I don't want to go to Christmas dinner and pretend everything's okay because my anxiety is at, 12 out of 10 when I'm there, and having the right to say that. Like, I always felt I had to say yes, to the point where I was a doormat, to the point where I was bending over backwards, feeling like I was giving 150% of my energy and effort and my spoons, if you will.
Yeah.
And then being treated like it was never enough. Something just broke. It was just, nope, this is never going to be enough. So that's it. I'm done. I need to start focusing on myself, on my own healing, on my own journey.
Yes.
And if I have some left over, then we'll talk, but not the constant, I felt like I was in this speeding freight train and I just wanted to jump off, but there were no planned stops ahead, no stations coming up. Familial estrangement sort of gradually took hold over the first year, like 2022. And then in the beginning of 2022, I was an admin for this large group that I was in. And
this is the late bloomer lesbians group, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Late bloomer lesbians plus for because it's basically anything except for men, cis het men or gay men. And so two of the ladies in the group, we were all in the book club together reading Untamed. And they asked me if I would come to their wedding. They were engaged. And they got married on 2/22/22, so February 22nd, 2022. And I flew down in the middle of the pandemic to Pocatello, Idaho.
Oh, no way.
And walked them both down the aisle, one on each arm. It was delightful. We spent the whole week we knew each other really well from online. Like, we would do FaceTime calls and things, but to see them in 3D and give them like a real person hug was so phenomenal. What I came away personally, in addition to like the fun of that, one of the brides was autistic. And so the whole time I was there, she kept like throwing things out at me, like basically gently telling me that I was on the spectrum.
Like and telling you that you were on the spectrum. Yes.
Yeah. She was like, I see you sleep with earplugs. That's kind of an on the spectrum thing. I see blah, blah, blah. So we ended up talking about how autism looks so different in women and that the DSM is so geared around autistic boys, white autistic boys. That's kind of the stereotype, or the Rain Man stereotype. And anyway, so I began the process of getting diagnosed. There's a 6.5-year wait in Alberta to get diagnosed. And so I ended up going through an online company. It was a year-long process of me writing copious amounts of notes, looking in my baby book, looking in my report card comments. And really, by the end of that year, I would have been so disappointed if I hadn't been diagnosed autistic. And I was. And it felt just as exciting as discovering that I was queer, discovering that I was autistic. And why that's so fascinating to me is that there is like this Venn diagram of queer people to us LGBTQI. And then the other part of that Venn diagram is autistic folks. It's this huge overlap. So that's become my special interest. And I think it just speaks to our not wanting to fall into the mold, not being so, both queer and autistic people, not being so concerned with conformity, coercion, control, that being who you really are, being known for who you are, finding your people, unmasking, all those things are in common between both. So it doesn't really surprise me that there are some in both, buckets, if you will. So that's been super fantastic, cool learning. Also, that's like come as no surprise.
Oh, sorry, what were you going to say?
Oh, the ADHD is also part of squirrels. Anyone,
work. It's a obvious moment.
Yeah.
And, I was just going to say, like, it's been so fascinating to hear you speak, because for me, as someone who met you very much at the beginning of that journey, it's like a domino effect, really, where you were like exploring this one facet of, say, your queerness, and then it opened you up to this whole other world of, what about this part of me, or this kind of thing that I've been carrying my whole life that I've never thought to question. When you were talking as well, I think you were saying earlier about how your queerness empowered you to question these systems, even in terms of setting boundaries and advocating for yourself. I don't know, it's kind of an amazing testimony to what sticking up for yourself can do in terms of like amplifying change in the rest of your life.
And that's maybe easier for people that have gone to school since 1990.
Well, it's a different world, right?
Yeah. The first step in speaking up for yourself and others is knowing yourself.
Yes.
And that was the piece that was missing. I was like on this treadmill of, work, eat, sleep, repeat, working up the ladder of all the things and not really pausing or to ask myself what I wanted. And I remember dating a lot in high school, looking for the right person with the right spark, but I was really looking in the wrong groups.
Yeah, in the total badlands,
So one of the things to piggyback on that domino effect, one of the other things that came out of this, and this is really common for late bloomer lesbians, is that you're married to a man and you love him. So what do? And I would say probably 95% of the women that I met in this group, women and trans and non-binary folks in this group, and beyond, chose to leave their partner and start a new life with their new partner. And my husband and I certainly looked at that. We went out looking at real estate individually. We went to the bank individually. We were looking at that. And then, I don't know, one day he just said to me, I really think we're better off. We're better together. I felt like, and then he was so validating. I mean, he's given me all the like rainbow things and like, right? Like he wants me to be me. He doesn't want to change me. He doesn't want to coerce me and control me. When he said that, I was like, I was shocked because no one else in my life had ever really made it okay for me to be me. So for him to be so open, acceptive, supportive was really amazing. And then it was in that group, somebody left a little comment and they said something about, hey, did you know there's such a thing as a mixed orientation marriage where one spouse is straight and the other is not? Mm-hmm. And I was like, So then I went on a deep dive in that, found a support group there, became an admin in that support group.
You have really taken the internet's ability to connect you with community, to find educational resources, and you've run with it. Sometimes people are like, how do you find other queer folk? How do you find people? But you already have the answer. You've just gone online and connected with so many different groups, and look at all of these different doors it's opened in your life.
Yeah, that is so validating too, because I think, you know, and people, so to bring up another kind of topic, if I could just kind of bounce around, is terminology. People always talk about, I don't need labels. And I get that. That's actually great for you if you don't want them and don't need them. And, you know, certainly I know lots of people that don't want them and don't need them. But for me, if those labels didn't exist, I would have thought I was the only person in the whole world to be married to a man and realize she wasn't straight. And then finding all my people and not feeling alone is just so validating. Yeah. So for that, I'm just grateful for so many things. It's almost been like an exponential growth, you know, period for me. Like, you know, kind of really delayed while I was in school. And I ran away from home at 16. I moved away from home at 19, went to Quebec University, lived there for 8 years. And, you know, I always felt like I was running away from something because I didn't fit in or I was being controlled, and never really realized why, but now I kind of have a better idea.
Yeah. And that makes me think of even, I think we chatted about this the first time we met, like when I was 17 and moving to Lethbridge here for school, I was doing that kind of similar running away from who I was. And your experience is so much further. It's to Quebec, it's to the other side of the country. And I think it just shows that you can't run from who you are. What was that kind of final catalyst that got you to say, actually, this is who I am?
Okay. So content warning, mental health. So I kind of already mentioned that I dated a lot of people and was married more than once. And I was trying to, part of that was actually because of my parents. My mom said to me, and I don't know if moms say this anymore, but I sure hope they don't, because this is wrong.
Ready.
This is just wrong. Okay. So my mom said to me, men won't buy the cow when you're giving them the milk for free.
You know what? I've heard this statement from my elderly grandmother. God. I will say that it has floated into my life, but very loosely, not something I took seriously. That's bizarre. So
I decided that, you know, since I was giving the milk away for free, I'd like ask them to put a ring on it. And then but like, it was like, out of guilt. It was for the wrong reasons. It was to show up in the world and be acceptable and make my parents proud and legitimize it, really. But all it did was trap me more. Like, I really think there's something to be said, and this is just my opinion, to young people of any culture, any gender, living on their own for a few years before you begin to get into a serious relationship. Learn to cook for yourself. Learn to clean your house. Learn to pay your bills and grocery shop. Learn to set boundaries. Learn how do you want to spend the Christian holidays or whichever religion, and the Hallmark holidays. You know, like how are they important to you? And then be solid in who you are. I know for me, so to speak to how it went with family was I got to practice first I practiced on a few very close friends and relatives. They're like my, okay, I can name them on one hand.
Like you practice coming out?
Yeah. I told my story to 3 very close people in my life and the 2 people under my roof. And so 5 human beings I told. Then in my support group, I came out, and then I came out on Facebook, and it was, so the problem with National Coming Out Day, it's great for Americans because it's a month before their Thanksgiving, but it's our Thanksgiving weekend. So it's super stressful.
You really chose family Super Bowl to do it. Hey, like the golden Olympic event.
Yeah. I waited until after Thanksgiving Sunday was over, and on the holiday Monday, I emailed my parents and my brother. My brother came back with just a short, "I love you no matter what, sis," which at face value was great. But then the homophobic comments, YouTube videos, and
started to come out.
TikToks started sliding in, and a lot of misogyny, a lot of racism that was internalized, that I have done a lot of work through my work, like working for a school board. We did a lot of work around truth and reconciliation and recognizing internalized everything. And then in the queer community, like, why is it you're uncomfortable to tell people? Are you ashamed of yourself? Did you internalize that? And breaking that down. And with my parents, it was different. I got this text, which was kind of like, we need a moment to think about it. We'll get back to you. And then they waited like, I think 11 days. And then they,
work.
Yeah. And then they wrote back with this long, email. And in my email, I had hyperlinked out to, the Trevor Project and like all these like really good resources to learn more. And it's as if they didn't read it, certainly didn't go to any of the links, but they totally gaslit me. They were like, "Well, we believe you've been overly influenced by the internet."
Like, okay, internet police, aren't they like 80?
They just turned 80. Get that. I have lived and learned and grown and read. And yes, I have vocabulary I didn't have when I was a teenager. So with my parents invalidating my identity, like that's a core part of who you are.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's a very hurtful thing to do to someone. It's like the worst possible response you could possibly have.
Like to coming out or just in general?
In general, but I grew up with it. When you're autistic, to be invalidated throughout your life, to be told, "No, you don't like Polly Pockets anymore. You're 13. That's too," this isn't my case, but "that's too young for you." Or "No, you can't like this, that, or the other thing." Or, they tell you what to do, how to act, how to say, how to sit, how to be, how to behave. And so to the point where you don't even know yourself anymore. You know what you're supposed to do. You just don't know what you want to do. And so that invalidation causes harm to autistic people. That same invalidation causes harm to queer people. So I started volunteering and going in on
taking control of your time and empowering yourself to be able to say no, even if it's not just like verbally, but with a physical time commitment that takes you somewhere else. That's really, really
and creating a new tradition where I know I'm appreciated, and creating new traditions around Christmas. I've always hated turkey. I've always hated cooking the thing. I don't even like the way it tastes. Why should
I agree. It is my least favorite bird. I don't know why we have to have it all the time.
Like I don't know. Like, you're going to spend 2 days cooking, cleaning, mostly cleaning, grocery shopping.
Speak on it.
And you're like, your feet are tired, your back is out, you're getting cranky, and then it's all over and you clean up and you're cleaning up for the next 2 days. So I flipped the script. We now do a charcuterie board with a glass of wine.
Love that.
With the 3 adults in the house. I grabbed this to show you. This is our family photo.
Very
so we
sweet.
get all
making new traditions.
New traditions. This is how we spend the 25th in our onesies. We get our 3 cats and our 2 Rottweilers all set up in the plaid onesies, and it's just us. It's calm. So we spend 20 minutes preparing the charcuterie board and 2 days enjoying it. Like, totally flipped
That's
it.
beautiful.
Much
And
better.
I'm thinking about your story and like all of these ways that you found to empower yourself and advocate for yourself. Like when we first had our conversation, you were just at the beginning of that journey. And even like looking at the way your hair is now, like you're so colorful and taking up space. Like this is such a noted and marked shift in just how much you glow and how confident you seem to be.
Yeah, I've taken up like colorful hobbies, like making like beading. and knitting and crocheting. This is knitting, this is crocheting, tons of hats for people, and some art I've done.
Very good.
I'm going to be in an art show today's Friday. It's tomorrow night. It's with one of our local autism support societies in their clubhouse. And so I think there's 8 artists, and I've never been in an art show before. I even reached out to my high school art teacher to invite her.
Oh, that's special. No,
Mrs. Kurzak, if you see this, she won't see this before tomorrow.
Yeah, we were thinking of you. We remembered you and your impact, and we're manifesting that you randomly show up, this art teacher.
Yes. Awesome.
Yeah. But I want to ask you, Michelle, like now it seems like you really can stand on your own 2 feet, and you've really, I don't know, like you've come so far. So thinking about where you are now versus when we first met, what kind of words of advice, if you could go back in time, would you have for that younger, first coming out self, or anybody who might be in that same position of living a life one way and then making a really big jump?
Well, I think I just scribbled down 3. My working memory's not the greatest, so I'll scribble down like the odd word here and there. But one of the words that I just scribbled down is actually the word of the year for 2023, which is authentic.
Beautiful.
I think the word authentic has guided me throughout this journey. There are other words like remaining curious, remaining open, but authentic is the main one. I think that when you and I connected that first time 2 years ago, I had just begun to embrace the word authentic. I had taken all of those different masks that I used to wear in high school around my different friend groups. I used to wonder, like, who would I actually be if we were all in the same room together? Because I am a different, I act differently amongst the smokers and the nerds and the art students. I've taken all those masks and I've piled them on top of my head like 10 different masks. And I'm no longer taking out one because it's offensive to this person and one because it's offensive to this person. This is me, the whole me, take it or like it. And if there's some of it that you don't like, you can walk away.
Oh, there it is. Let that be the soundbite of the episode. You can walk away if you don't like it. It's your life.
Yeah. I'm not changing. I love who I am. I love that I got to be me. I got to figure it out. I got to connect with community. But what got me started was 2020 was the beginning of lockdown. I had just turned 50. I had just been diagnosed with melanoma. And these were my thoughts were, am I doing right now what really matters most to myself? If I only have a year, month, week, or day left to live, am I doing that thing or those things right now? If not, why not? And if not now, when? And that has guided me too. And that has been the impetus for jumping in and volunteering and connecting with community. I learned from my father-in-law who worked a manual labor job in, he was like a butcher, standing in a cold room, like long days, cutting up meat. And he has a plaque on his wall in his basement. And it says, for 30 years, I think it's 30, it might be more, maybe at least 25 or 30 years, has never missed a single day of work due to illness or for any other reason.
Oh boy.
So, but this is what I learned. That might be good, but it's not life, because his dream that whole time that he was doing this was that when he retired, he would get an RV and he would drive across Canada and he would get to see the beautiful country he'd been in, that he'd been saving for and saving his energy for. But what happened is he got diabetes from not taking breaks, from not having snacks, from not drinking water. And he went low driving and he hit a parked car once and he flipped his van a second time and then he lost his license. And I thought, I'm close to retirement at 50. I'm not going to wait until I'm retired to begin living. So I'm going to start doing some of these things and slip them in the evenings and the weekends without overwhelming myself. And so that's where I have really begun to not like just take my life off pause, my life off hold, like embrace it, grab it by both horns and like, rah, like ride it like the stampede bronking bucko. No, bucking bronco.
What are they? That's what it is. I was about to try and help you, but I had nothing. I am not that type of gay.
No, me neither.
No.
Me neither.
No, I actually get like, I don't know, just the warm fuzzies hearing you speak to that and that, you know, trajectory that you've been on. And when you talk about that, if not, what was it? If not now, then when? I remember when you first said those words to me, and they're just as powerful today and just as meaningful as they were 2 years ago. Yeah. And
maybe more so for me. And as of November, I think, whatever, anyway, as of last week sometime, I'm no longer at work. I'm on leave from work, medical leave. I've stepped down from volunteering with Rainbow Elders and ARCs. And I'm just closing my circle of support. I'm spending more time with my father-in-law, making medical appointments and taking him there, and with my mother-in-law. So with melanoma, it's kind of a cancer that once you get it, it's expected that it will kind of spread. And so once you get it, you're no longer able to donate your organs because people have received organs from a melanoma donor and ended up with melanoma themselves like 10 years later. So I won't say I catastrophized when this was stage 2, but one of the DBT skills is to cope ahead. So you plan for the worst and hope for the best. And I did that then. So I learned that if it spreads throughout my body, what are my options? And I learned just recently, a week or two ago, that it has spread into my brain. There's a tiny, tiny spot in my brain. And it didn't come as a shock. It kind of came as, yeah, okay, so that's the next step in this journey. I've talked about all these metaphors of being on the speeding freight train and just wanting to get off and just wanting to pause. And so I'm making that pause now to focus on my own healing and health.
Sounds like from what you've told me about it, even outside of this conversation today, that you feel pretty optimistic. I am optimistic, but I'm also okay. Should this be the end of my time in this place? I've had a good run. Facing this, it sounds like you have no regrets in the sense of like coming out when you did and how your life has shifted and changed. Like now that the future is, who knows what's going to happen. And of course, everyone listening and myself is sending you so much love, and we're hoping for the best. Yes, 100%.
Thank you.
But it's so hard not to get a little emotional because I feel so much love for you and hearing your story, and you've made such an impact on me, even in just the time I've known you.
Thank you. No regrets. I would do it all over again, exactly as I have. But instead of doing it at 50, I think I would do it at 20. I would do it at 16 if I could, if I had the knowledge. So for those folks who are younger, and you're on this path, don't doubt yourselves. You know yourself. Don't let anyone gaslight you into believing that they know you better than you do. They talk all confident. We're all equal. We're all human. We're all struggling. And some of the people giving advice don't know themselves as well as you do.
And I think that's the key of it. You know, when I think about your story and the pieces I've been privileged enough to hear and share on this show, I think about the importance that you really emphasize for taking that time to know yourself and explore and maybe deviate from the path that was set before you to figure out whether you like it or not, to learn how to set those boundaries like we've talked about, and to live vibrantly and proudly. Like when I think about you joining again all of these groups or having all of these experiences, it's like you've done a whole lifetime in 2 years since I've known you. And that is so impressive and something to be admired. So I hope you take the time to rest for sure, because girl bossing the world, it takes energy. But you've inspired me, and you've inspired, I know, so many of my listeners, because to this day, your episode is still one of the most watched and streamed and shared from Queer in Alberta. Are there any kind of closing thoughts that you have that you'd want to share with our Queer in Alberta audience here on Optic TV?
Queer people in Alberta, keep on being queer.
Mic drop.
Keep on keeping on. You made a comment somewhere like, what am I going to do with an anthropology degree? Or someone had asked you that.
I know.
This is what you're doing. This is so valuable. Like this collecting of stories, you know, you're capturing people's individual stories told in their own voice with their own facial expressions, body language, their own environment. It can reach anyone, anywhere in the world when you post that. And so there could be someone in a remote village that identifies with me or with my story or with you and your story or any of your guests. And I know for me, when I was looking, being able to find someone else like me was like that lifeline I needed at the time. So the idea that I could be a lifeline for someone else, thinking they're the only one in the world with X, Y, or Z of my many, you know, pots I'm in. None of us are alone, but without the words to describe it or the platform to tell our stories, we can be left feeling alone. And that's not a pleasant feeling. So thanks for making, I don't know, amplifying our voices, I think is the right word. Kelsey, very nice.
Thank you. You can maybe turn red over here, a little misty-eyed in the corner. Like, you know, we really reference, and I think it's good to kind of highlight this origin story of this series with COVID and the pandemic, those feelings of isolation. You talk about this series being a lifeline of community and connection for you. It was just as much the same for me. And I wouldn't be who I am without having met you. This is just such a fulfilling episode for me to get to connect with you all this time later. Is there anything you'd want to share with the audience about how they can keep connected with you or follow along with you in your journey?
I have a blog that I've kind of done the running thing, the triathlon thing, and then deleted all the posts. And I'm planning to write a few of these larger life learnings. My username is Trimalkin, Trimalkin.
Thank you so much for watching and listening to another episode of Queer in Alberta. If you are loving Queer in Alberta, please feel free to go and leave a 5-star review wherever you are streaming or watching the podcast. If you are loving the series, want to see more Queer in Alberta more frequently, or want to help with season 3, you can go to buymeacoffee.com/queerinalberta and give a donation of whatever feels right to you. All of the money that you donate will go directly back to me and my team and help us to make season 3 the most incredible season yet. Again, that is buymeacoffee.com/queerinalberta. We've already had a few donations, which means so very much to me. And we've already knocked 1 episode of season 3 out of the park. So I'm really excited for this one, you guys. From the bottom of my heart, thank you to Michelle for coming back into the space with me. It gave me such deja vu while also reminding me just in real time of how much has changed. I don't think it's at all an overstatement to say that myself and the listeners of the show share so much love for Michelle. We are wishing her the time that she needs to rest and feel well. And I hope to have more updates from Michelle soon because I know that we want nothing but the best for her. If you want to follow along with Michelle's journey, go check out the Blogspot link that she shared at the end of the episode there. If you didn't quite catch it, it is in the description link of this episode, so go take a look. But this brings us to our Hey Buckla Q&A portion of the show. The Hey Buckla question is always inspired by the episode that we just listened to together and shared in. And with authenticity being the theme of Michelle's journey and of that episode, I wanted to ask you, how does your queerness allow you to be your most authentic self? You can answer this question by DMing me on Instagram at kels.valendela, KELS.VALENDELA, or I promise this will be on time, next Wednesday, which accountability divas. What is next Wednesday? Next Wednesday, August 14th, I will be posting this exact question onto my Instagram story with a little Q&A box for you to answer directly with your submission. Answering on Instagram allows you the opportunity to have your answer featured on the next episode of the show, which will be on time. So I want to know, Diva, how has your queerness helped you find and embrace your authenticity? Let me know on Instagram next Wednesday, August 14th. And oh my goodness, I would be remiss if I didn't tell you something. If you are in Calgary or surrounding area, Mark this date down. August 17th. Hi divas, so mortifying. I'm recording this after work. The event is August 16th, not 17th. Thank you so much. Love you long time. Please show up. 5 to 9 p.m. at the historic Fire Hall. We are screening 2 of the episodes from season 2. I am so excited because I am hosting this event in collaboration with Lavender Club YYC, who you'll remember was the first episode that we did here on season 2 of the show. We are screening their episode along with my beloved drag mother FRANCHESKA DYNAMITES episode on the big screen outside at the historic Fire Hall in Calgary. The information as well as a link to tickets will be in this description as well. Tickets are $5 each, or there's pay what you can options as well. And again, all of the proceeds from this event are going to go back to Queer in Alberta and Lavender Club YYC. Right now, some of the door prizes, some of them are tickets to shows from whether the Holidays show, which is a fantastic drag show that happens, I think, once a month in Calgary, featuring No Baloney and Osmosis, 2 fabulous kings that I got to work with during Lethbridge Pride. They've donated some tickets. Lunchbox Theater and Downstage Theater have. Story Hive is giving away lots of swag, which that's not my branding, that's theirs. But there's gonna be a ton of fun stuff going on. Can't wait to see you. I am so excited about this. Before I go, as a final teaser, the last 2 episodes, sad, of what we filmed for TELUS Story Hive's official season 2 that will air this fall on TELUS Optic TV. We're going to move north. We're heading further up the province. So far, we've been very southern Alberta between Lethbridge and Calgary, but we are going to Edmonton to talk to 2 very amazing individuals. One is a drag performer extraordinaire. I have so much love for her. And the other, let's just say you might recognize them from social media, particularly TikTok. And that's it. That's all I'm going to say about that because I'm just sitting on this secret and I cannot wait for you to see these. No matter where you are listening from in the world today, whether it is in Alberta, in one of the small towns or big cities, or maybe somewhere else entirely, I hope you are feeling celebrated and seen and loved for the wonderful person that you are. I cannot wait to share these final episodes of season 2 with you and to see you live and in person. Bye!